going on, peeps? Derek back, bringing you another random review. What I got for you guys is a little something different today. It's a documentary that I just watched, and it was really interesting. And its main subject matter is a director that I feel is very underrated. It's He's directed two films that I really dig a lot, and people should see. And this film in particular is about his involvement in the early process of one of his dream project, the island of Dr. Moreau, which didn't turn out so well for him because early on he was fired from the set and replaced with another director, and it just turned into a mess, that whole film, and it had a lot of problems. And that documentary is Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau. Very interesting documentary. It delves into like the pre-production and Richard Stanley, how he always loved the story of Monroe and was upset with like how unfaithful some of like the earlier screen adaptations of the story were, and he wanted to dwell into a more truthful presentation of H.G. Wells' story. And what I saw, and it could have been like a great film from like, he showed like art and stuff and like how the makeup and his story and the ideas that he had in the film. And it just turned into like a big fiasco with the actors involved, like Marlon Brando. Even after Stanley, Brando wasn't there when Stanley was directing the project because it was during the time of his daughter's suicide, and it was a difficult time for him, and he came on the set, and it was difficult more towards the guy who took Stanley's place, John Frankenheimer, who's a director I do respect. He has done some awesome films in my opinion, but not just this one. It was just a fiasco, and the main focus of like the fiasco is Val Kilmer, who is a difficult actor to work with from what I heard from previous like situations, and it shows in this film. Like even like they have interviews with like the actors that were on the film even after Stanley left, like Fruza Balk and a few other actors. And yeah, it has some awesome interviews in this, like with people that were involved, like all the crew and extras and stuff. And it involves like how they were disappointed when Stanley left the project and the fiasco that came afterwards with Frankenheimer and his style of directing and all that stuff. It's very like Stanley's like a very interesting person. They interview him. It's like one of his main like interviews. Like he has done like interviews about the film and previous. Like I know he did an interview on the Island of Lost Souls Criterion about that film in particular and his love of the novel and all that. And it's just very sad that he never got to do his vision, because I really like the ideas that he was coming up with. And I do like his films a lot, like Hardware and Dust Devil are like two of my favorite films, and people should see those and respect his work because he's a very underrated director that no one ever talks about. And his very interesting story, like how you could just become like a creative force from a film and then be ripped from you in a matter of seconds. And it's very interesting because there is a story. This isn't really a spoiler of the film because the story has been circulating through like the webs and internet and all that. Like Richard Stanley actually did break onto the set, dressed up as an extra, and it delves into that like near the very end of the film, and you got to see like what his project turned into, and he wasn't very happy with it. I wouldn't be, that's for sure, if somebody would take my dream project and turn it into one of the worst films ever made. It's what this film's known for. It's a very bad movie. I watched Frankenheimer's version. It's like a, it's not my favorite adaptation of Moreau for sure. That has to go to like Island of Lost Souls. That's probably like, even though H.G. Wells disowned that film, that's probably still the best adaptation of the story. But it's just sad that it never accumulated to Stanley's vision, because he is a director that I respect and would love to see him make more films. He does need to make more films. He's just one of those visionary artists that Hollywood probably won't ever get, but whatever, it's everyone's opinion. This documentary is very informative. It's really well done. Like, I love the editing, like how they edited, and love the stories from the cast members and the crew that were on the film. And Bob Shaye's interviewed on this, like, because it was a New Line film, and Tim Sullivan, he was working at New Line at the time, I believe. He's part of the interviews too, and like I said, Fairuza Balk and a few other of the cast members that were the Beast People and the crew members and all that. They're all very informative, and I actually really enjoyed their interviews in this, and it brought me a new insight of them as people, as also into Richard Stanley's persona and how he is. And they did a really good job with this Severin. They produced this documentary and they put it out on Blu-ray. It's a very, comes in 2 editions. I got the 3-disc edition, which is awesome. I really highly recommend you get the 3-disc edition. It has a recently discovered German version of The Island of Dr. Moreau that I haven't watched yet, but I'm thrilled to check that out. There's a bunch of stuff on H.G. Wells. There's actually an interview with Richard Stanley about Wells, which is on the 2nd disc, and there's a lot of like other interviews too, like that weren't on. They have a archival interview with John Frankenheimer when the film was about to be released, which is very interesting, his take on the whole project. And they also have an interview with Barbara Steele, who was supposed to be in the film. They actually, Richard Stanley filmed the scene that was supposed to be like a, I think it was supposed to be like a flashback scene. She was going to be like Monroe's wife in the film. And it's a shame that she's, and it's cool that they have an interview with her. It's an audio interview though, but it's still an interview. And also, the 3rd disc is very interesting. It's actually Richard Stanley reading the entire novel on CD. It's very, I'm going to delve into that too. It's very interesting how this edition is so stacked up like that for this documentary. And I highly recommend it. If I had to rate Island Lost Soul, I'd have to give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. It's an awesome documentary. I highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Richard Stanley's works and like to delve into his persona and his vision of what his version of Island Dr. Moreau would have been like if he actually got to direct the film that he wanted to direct, I highly recommend this documentary. 9.5 out of 10. Wicked awesome stuff. Alright guys, that's all I got for you for Lost Soul, the doomed journey of Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau. I hope you enjoyed the review, and it's an awesome documentary. I wish you guys would check it out and give Richard Stanley some love, pick up his films. I'll see you soon. Peace out.